We are tonight's entertainment.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Excellent!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Movie Mania podcast, where we talk about the past, present, and future. I am Sherman Troy White of Podcast Media, and joining me is the man, the myth, the legend. He is an android, and yes, he dreams of electric sheep. Trilby / Mr. Toddus.
See, I tried to count sheep, but that's boring, so I'll make them electric, and it's kind of like a massive Pokemon battle in my head.
Is that what that comes from? Where you count sheep in your sleep? I never thought about
Neither
it.
did I. I just thought, how can I do a moderately funny segue, and I didn't even do that. I didn't even even that didn't work.
Oh, I mean, ha 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 ha. Edit that later. Ha ha ha.
Yeah,
What a
put in
fantastic
the
joke.
canned
And so
audience
cleverly
laughter.
told. Yeah. Just add in the canned laugh like with a Big Bang Theory.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Jolie. How you been doing?
Yeah, I've been good. Yeah. It's been a relatively quiet week for me, though. Not an awful lot to report, to be honest. What about yourself?
Okay. So not a great week for reasons I won't go into here.
Oh.
My weekend was pretty fun. I'm still recovering. I went to homecoming yesterday. I'm a senior, and so we had our homecoming dance.
Aw.
I'd never been to homecoming. Surprise! The big movie losers never been to homecoming. But my girlfriend really wanted to go, and she was like, "Let's go to homecoming." I'm like, "Fine, let's go to homecoming." And so I went to homecoming, and it was like this weird like mosh pit of just disgusting dancing and sweat. It was awful. And so I came home. My dad's in Houston right now because he went on a trip. And so I came home. I was by myself. And so I was like, I'm going to order pizza. So I ordered pizza at like 12-ish. And so I ordered pizza. And I put on The West Wing on Netflix. And then I crashed on the couch. And I woke up this morning with an agonizing headache. I presume from a half gallon of tea open on the floor. That I don't remember ever opening, by the way. And just a pizza box next to me, like half naked. And I won't lie to you, I felt pretty fantastic.
It's what life's all about, though, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And I woke up and I was like, "Oh, that's right. I gotta record a podcast in like an hour." I was like, "But first, I had to watch a movie," and so I put on Gerald's Game, and so now we're here.
Yes. If you can't enjoy just incredibly lazy, pizza-filled, sweaty, dance-filled experiences, then what can you enjoy?
Yeah. Also, I got a article published on this website, this film magazine that happened. That's in my town,
Yes,
Glide Magazine.
Yeah, I saw on Facebook. Congrats, man.
Yeah. They published an article with which they talked about the original Blade Runner. I definitely didn't procrastinate and make that post later than it was supposed to be. James, if you're listening to this, I apologize. But so that was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. I just got that news right before we started recording. But besides that, even though it's a school holiday, I have to be back at school tomorrow to do rehearsal for 6 hours. So.
Ooh. Busy.
Yeah, busy, and I'm filming tomorrow. So yeah, busy. Can't you see?
Have fun.
Sometimes the world just hypnotizes me.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
I just wish I had anything remotely exciting to talk about, but like I said a few weeks ago, we finished like block 1 of filming my short, and we're not going back to filming for another 2 weekends. Because of availability and prep and stuff like that. So I'm living a very boring existence at the moment.
Hey man, sometimes boring is important. Sometimes we need a little boring in our
Yeah,
lives.
but it means I've managed to watch a lot of like Netflix and straight to video stuff, which we'll talk about in homework. But yeah.
I was just looking at the listener questions, and Ned Erdy has the best question I've heard in a long time.
Oh, say it first. I've not looked at the questions yet.
I'm not gonna read it until we get there, but that's a great question. Okay, so that being said, let's get to the movie news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. Cannonball!
Alright, this is the movie news portion of the show, which gets to talk about the movie news that occurred over the course of the last week. Slur in my words. We got a couple trailers this past week. For starters, like maybe few hours ago, we got the trailer for... Actually, we'll talk about Pacific Rim first. We got a Pacific Rim trailer a few days ago. I'm genuinely excited for this because isn't Stephen Knight doing this? The guy that did the first season of Daredevil? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, Stephen Knight, who is the showrunner of Marvel's Daredevil and Spartacus, and he was that guy who was meant to do Sony Sinister Six, but dropped out
I thought that was Drew Goddard.
No,
I could be wrong.
I think he was involved in Sinister Six at one point. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't to direct. Maybe it might have just been writing. He had something involved with Sinister Six at one point. So this guy has been kind of on the fringes of a big, massive mainstream show. Not saying that Daredevil on Netflix isn't, but I think hopefully Pacific Rim Uprising. Not a great title. I prefer the Maelstrom title that they gave it originally when it was first announced. Pacific Rim Maelstrom sounds a lot better, I think. But
if it's on a poster, is Joe Schmo from Kansas going to be like Pacific Rim Angelina Jolie's in this? That's exactly how that would
Pacific Rim
go.
Maleficent.
Like, I'm telling you, man, but like people don't understand. I'm just dealing from experience. I've heard things before.
Maybe. Yeah.
Plus, no one here saw Pacific Rim, so it's not even
I saw Pacific Rim, and it was my favorite movie of 2013.
You've got problems.
I have no problems. I just love movies.
It's odd, right? I didn't like the movie, but I really liked this trailer, and I was really excited to see everybody back. Like I'm like, oh, it's Charlie Day. Oh, it's that one guy from Dark Knight Rises. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh man, I'm actually excited to see this. For some reason, I'm gonna go back, despite not liking the first one. I didn't hate it. I just thought they did so much stupid, like, pseudoscience nonsense of, like, we have to be connected, and we work together because of our brains, and then we had bloody generic white guy number 4 as the protagonist, and then the Asian lady was just kind of there, even though it should have been about her. There's, like, 2 good scenes in that movie. One, when they're fighting in the city, and when she's running from the thing as a little girl.
Yeah.
I thought that scene is fantastic. But besides that, the movie really did anything for me. The trailer looks great, though.
Yeah.
John Boyega looks like a really charming lead.
Well, I like the trailer in terms of just it on its own, but as a sequel to Pacific Rim, I was a tiny smidge let down by it. I think it's fun. I think the effects, while obviously not 100% finished...
no way.
No, I like the sort of Power Rangers, giant Zords fighting in a generic city type aesthetic that they've got going on here, and how they even do the lineup at the end where it's all 4 of them with different weapons. One of them's got the spiky spirally ball on the chain, and one of them's got the laser whip and the sword and the arm gun. Although there was something about the aesthetic of the first Pacific Rim, like the eastern neon skyline and the rain and the atmosphere.
It's that the first one's very Guillermo del Toro.
Oh yeah, and I think as soon as I saw the first Pacific Rim, I went out to my nearest bookstore and bought one of those massive art books for like the art of Pacific Rim. And I don't do that often, but it's just Guillermo del Toro. You know that there's more background detail in a single scene than most films have in their entire runtime. So that book is fascinating. And I don't think we're going to get that in Pacific Rim Uprising, but if we still get a really fun film, John Boyega seems to be a good lead here. Interested in what the kaiju designs are going to be like. I'm just wondering what is going to replace the hole that Guillermo's absence has left. What is going to be happening in this film to justify the sequel, apart from more effects, more shiny stuff, and more giant robots, which is not a bad thing to have. Yeah. I'm just wondering what is there that will really push this movie over the edge for me.
I think something that, and maybe it's just the film nerd in me, it is shot differently, very much so, because I do believe Guillermo del Toro used the kind of wider, more expansive 1.85 frame, kind of like what you see in like the Justice League trailer, the Avengers, and then this film is shot like, a regular cinema film, like 235, and so it kind of just looks more like, I don't know, something about the action feels like I'm going to be able to actually see something, which is fun. Because like the stuff in the water in the first movie, I couldn't tell what was going on, and I found that to be a genuine problem because I get that Guillermo del Toro wants to make a Guillermo del Toro movie, but for me, he hasn't made a movie, in my opinion, that I liked since Hellboy 2, which is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't love Crimson Peak. I didn't like. It's Crimson Peak, that's the one he did, with Tom Hiddleston. I didn't like Crimson Peak. I didn't like Pacific Rim. What did he do before that? Do something before that? I don't remember. He hasn't really impressed me in a bit. Not to mention Shape of Water looks like a bunch of wank.
It looks so good.
Really? Okay.
Because I love Del Toro, and I personally don't understand the criticism. Or it was night and it was raining and there was a lot of water, so I couldn't see what was going on. For me personally, I could make out everything, and that was one of the things I loved.
I mean,
about
to be fair, I haven't seen it in like 3 years, so I might go back to it, and hell, we might do an episode on it. So I mean, I don't know, and maybe it's just because Guillermo del Toro has burnt me so much that my excitement for this has got me more excited. Also, his filmmaking it's kind of got that Shyamalanism to it, where it's just kind of awkward sometimes. I don't know. There's something about the film that I can't get.
He has really weird sensibilities, which you're either on board with or you're not. It's one reason a lot.
But
of people...
at the same time, I love the Hellboy movies and I love Pan's Labyrinth.
Well,
so I don't understand.
A lot more of his other films, like Crimson Peak, which is so Del Toro that it can even be alienating to a few people. Like some people who are even Del Toro fans are not a fan of Crimson Peak, and I get it absolutely. But it's why I love the first Pacific Rim, and also the allegory of it being natural disasters and how they have to work together to fight. It's an on-the-nose allegory, but it's something that I think really propels the film. And I'm wondering what Pacific Rim Uprising will have in its place. What's weird, though, is that the budget for this is actually $50 million lower than the first Pacific Rim. I say weirdly, it's not that weird, because the first film kind of broke even, but it was not a big runaway success. Like,
it made like 89 million here in the States. I think that's about it. Something like that.
That is a crime. That is a crime.
Well, it's not very good, so it's not.
Well, this trailer seems like what would be if Pacific Rim had made $1 billion, let's say, in an alternative universe, in an infinite reality. If Pacific Rim had made $1 billion, this looks like one of the films that would have been created in its wake as a imitator, instead of the actual Pacific Rim sequel that we're actually getting.
Okay. In the same way, like, a Battleship was just Transformers on a boat.
Kind of, but I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way against Uprising. We're going to let the movie speak for itself. It's just that this trailer, it's clear that they're going for a very different feel. And if that difference winds up being good, then yeah, it's going to be good. But as of right now, I kind of want it to prove itself a bit more.
Okay.
Good trailer, though. I was not a big fan of the music choice, though. I don't know.
See, I don't know what it is with trailer music, and like we just can't get along on that either. Because again, we got a Murder of the Orient Express trailer a couple weeks ago. We got a new one, and they used a similar. I think they used the same song.
They just used the instrumental for it, though, which I think worked better.
And well, to be fair, I love that song, and I love Imagine Dragons because I'm a teenager.
I like the song too. It just didn't fit in that trailer, I think. At least with the lyrics.
I liked the juxtaposition between the kind of old sensibilities of like, look how old-timey in fashion this is. Look at it, it's so gorgeous, versus the kind of modern-esque song. But that being said, we're going to have to agree to disagree on topics. However, it's something I feel like we can both agree on.
I mean, it could be worse. Pacific Rim could have taken a David Bowie 70s song and done a grunge remix of it.
Dude, yes. Give me Ziggy Stardust to Pacific Rim. That sounds like an actual good time. Speaking of which, I blasted out my voice yesterday, which is why I still sound a little, maybe if I sound a little iffy tonight, because they played Bohemian Rhapsody at the homecoming yesterday, and so
you instantly jumped into singing mode.
Yeah, and I jammed out into like 6.5 minutes of Bohemian Rhapsody, from the beginning. And there are some notes in there that I didn't think I could hit, and I did.
It is in these moments where you find out who we really are.
Yeah, now my throat hurts, and I don't have any tea. So thank you, Freddie Mercury. Speaking of which,
and David Bowie's Heroes was in the Justice League trailer, but it was like a grunge remix version. Not a fan.
Have you heard the Gary Clark Jr. version of the Beatles song they put in the first trailer from April?
I've not heard the original full version. I have looked for it, but I've not managed to find it.
I think him, because since Junkie XL is no longer composer on the film, I think Danny Elfman's taken over. They just released that single, and I think it's a very good cover of the original Beatles song.
Who is it by?
It's Gary Clark Jr. I can find a link and send it to you.
I'll find it. See, because I love I actually really like that version. I guess I haven't been able to find a full version. Okay, yeah, I found
it's
it now.
so good, isn't it? Come together. It's so good.
It's just music by the Beatles is just so malleable and timeless that I think stuff like that.
They did it for Kubo too, didn't they? They did that George Harrison song. Then they did a cover of the "While My Heart, My Guitar Gently Weeps" or something like that.
Which is really good. Yeah. Really good cover.
God, Kubo's such a good movie. Any Hoosers, I'm trying to get to the Justice League trailer, and we keep diverging. Justice League trailer. Chili, what did you think of the Justice League trailer?
It was alright. It was, I think, a step down from the Comic-Con trailer, but that was like a 4.5 minute full-on. Just like this trailer has got to get a lot of fans back on board after partially kind of losing Zack Snyder to Joss Whedon, whereas this one is we're 5 or 6 weeks away from the film. Let's give it a final push. Different trailers for different purposes, but it's still it looked good. I'm seeing a lot of fans kind of compare prior trailers to this one, looking at the change in CGI and the change in colour corrections, and there's definitely a very notable change, particularly how many of the red backgrounds, regardless of scene, regardless of what the context is, there was a red background for many shots, and it's now been replaced with a slightly colder, like blue hue, so there's clearly been a lot of like tonal visual changes done with Joss Whedon's being brought
even
on.
Like I think they've taken like there's like the exact same shot of Batman like grappling in, throwing a batarang at like a parademon, and in the first trailer it's like this really cold desaturated blue, and then in the next trailer I think it's like this really like strong like golden like crimson.
And when Wonder Woman attacks the parademon on top of the Batmobile at the very end of the trailer, there's a whole different background. And it will. That's not a criticism against the trailer. There was recently a featurette released promoting Hela from Thor Ragnarok, and the scene where she grabs Thor's hammer in midair, completely different background from the very first trailer. That setting has completely changed. From as in the location, so this stuff happens all the time. Like for example, at the end of Age of Ultron, the scene where Ultron and Vision are having their last conversation in the forest, that was just filmed in a car park, and then they put
that's not
they put a forest in the background. This stuff happens, so I'm not going to hold it against the film. It's just it's interesting.
I was gonna say it brings up the discussion that clearly they're turning this film into something else, and I think that's something that has been evident since Snyder was leaving. Even back when Snyder was still on board, despite the Snyder-isms still being there was clearly a tonal shift. Clearly, and like Ben Affleck has come out and said certain things about how the tone of Batman Superman might have been too dark, and then he said that was kind of the point. But what I will say, before I address that claim, the problem with Batman v Superman, and we've said this for so long, even if you like the film, the problem with the film is not its tone. Because you can have a dark film. You can have a film with a darker-ish tone. I mean, even Marvel's dabbled in darker tones before. I mean, look at certain scenes in Civil War, look at Winter Soldier. But, like, the problem with CBS wasn't the fact that it was dark, it's the fact that it didn't make any sense in the character logic, and that it was poorly shot. There was a bazillion other problems with that movie besides its actual tone.
But what was the statement the producer came out with, saying it was what we learned from Batman v Superman is that fans do not like seeing their heroes deconstructed. So that was apparently the issue.
Yeah, sure. But then Ben Affleck has come out and said that was the point the entire time, and how they were always going to make this tonal shift from Justice League. But it feels so breakneck. It feels so contrasting. You know, like you have to ease us into that. If your plan was to have this really dark, brooding, like gritty like movie where it's like death and people getting shot in Africa and Superman's a terrorist and it, like essentially Dark Knight Returns but with Superman, and then you want this one to be like, no, Grant Morrison's Justice League run. You have to build to that. You can't just drop us in the pool, you know? Like, you can't put us in a shock. So I don't buy that statement. But the trailer, you're right, it's fine.
Yeah.
I did like the bit with the Flash and the bat signal. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I do like Aquaman. Jason Momoa seems to just... I think he's going to the film.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited for the Aquaman movie. If this is the tone that Aquaman is going to have, then to have that as a protagonist in a DC movie makes me so excited, because for the first time in DC, even in Wonder Woman wasn't dark, but she was still very stoic. She still didn't necessarily have a lightness to her that Jason Momoa's Aquaman looks like he's going to have, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah, did you see the character posters they released a couple of days ago?
Is it the one that's like, you can't save the world alone or whatever?
It's the ones where it's each member of the Justice League, but it has All In written, and the Cyborg one looks like he's sitting on an invisible chair, and the All In caption is on his crotch, and it looks really weird.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah, it's really bad, guys. But okay, one question I have for you. I actually like the opening where it's Henry Cavill as Clark Kent in the cornfield.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was a really interesting change of pace. But I've got to ask, the Henry Cavill we saw in that scene, was that porn stash?
I just saw the cyborg.
It's so bad, isn't it?
That's so. Oh, they're really doing Cyborg wrong in this movie.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that he's going to be cool in the film, and that Ray Fisher's going to do really well. He's a Broadway actor. He's established.
Yeah.
Let's just tell poster. But Henry Cavill in the cornfield. Do you think that is porn stash Cavill, or is that pre-porn stash Cavill?
I was thinking that too, and I was watching. I'm like, is that a real lip? I was thinking, like, the moment that scene happened, I'm like, is that real? Is that a CG lip? I think it's CG.
It's hard to tell, but I'm going to be thinking that. Like, it's not a fault of the film, but it's just something I'm going to be thinking about.
It's definitely the fault of somebody. Like, it's somebody's fault.
Oh no, it's the Paramount executive refusing to let him shave it.
Yeah. I get it, though. I get the Paramount. Like, it's like, no, we spent time. Like, as someone who's stubborn in this filmmaking, I get that mindset. Also, in the Justice League headshots, like the side by side head profile pictures, Superman still isn't smiling. So they're also looking stoic, stoic, and they're all like scowling. Like, why is Aquaman scowling? Why isn't Aquaman like being like the surfer dude that he is in the trailer? I don't understand why everyone in the marketing is still like, yeah, Justice League, it's serious, but there's a sunrise, so maybe it's not super serious. I don't know.
Yeah, but the trailer's fine. Not a fan of the. They could. Why did they not just use the original cut of David Bowie's Heroes? Why did they have to grunge it up? Not a fan of that. But like I said with the Comic-Con trailer, I think that it's going to be a fun, visually pleasing experience with great action and great effects and all that stuff. But let's hope that it's going to be a bit more than that. Let's hope that it's... Is
it weird that the movie's shot on both digital and film cameras?
I'm not sure. I don't really look into it until after I've seen the film.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just on IMDb and I'm looking around. And apparently they shot on both digital and film cameras. I don't know. I think that's okay. All right, whatever.
Interesting choice.
Okay, so that's the trailers. Szechuan sauce?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, right. Okay, right.
This is the story that I brought up because I just think it's so funny. Okay, so in the season 3 premiere of Rick and Morty, there's a gag where this is going to go over the heads of people who just don't watch Rick and Morty or whatever. So there's time codes in the description. So feel free.
Oh, that's right. Yes, time codes below. They're down in the description.
But yeah, so there's a gag where Rick goes back to the late 90s to get a memory. And before he goes to the memory, he decides to go to the McDonald's drive-thru and get some Szechuan sauce, which is a special promotional sauce done for the Disney movie Mulan. Once the promotion was done, that was it, and they stopped doing the sauce, but the sauce is apparently amazing. So once Rick and Morty Series 3 ended, McDonald's announced that October 7th would be a day where in select locations across America, they would be providing Szechuan sauce to their customers.
Damn it!
But no, here's the thing though, that sounds like a really cool bit of gesture, that sounds awesome. So they listed these addresses and these times on their website for when you can go in on this day and get some Szechuan sauce. And hundreds of people turned out to these locations. There were lines around the block. People were waiting for literally hours. Hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for hours outside of these McDonald's. However, many of the McDonald's locations were only provided with about 20 packets of sauce. So they were only provided. It's not just the fact that they had incredibly bad availability. It was the messaging, and it was also how they handled the crowds, because they had hundreds of people queuing, knowing full well they only had a few dozen packets. They took numbers like the first 20, 25 people, they got a number, even though they only had maybe 12 packets in, even though they took numbers for over 20 people to get reservations. And
that's awesome.
Some people went to McDonald's that were shown on some of the addresses that were on the website, only to find out that the staff of those McDonald's had no idea what they were talking about. They were saying, "Oh, the website says that you're going to sell Szechuan sauce," and they had no idea what this promotional campaign was. Some McDonald's were only provided with posters, but no Szechuan sauce. And it was just an incredibly terribly handled thing. They had people waiting in the queues for hours, and they were buying food because they were waiting in the queues for hours and not getting their sauce. So they were just waiting, and they were buying food from McDonald's. So it's just kind of insidious. They know that these people are going to be getting hungry in the queue, so they'll give them money for food, but they won't get the sauce that they came here for. It was really, really badly handled. It's partly funny and partly really, really depressing.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's Rick and Morty in a nutshell. I think this whole scenario, the collection of public panic, corporation, what's it called? What am I thinking of? When you trick somebody, subterfuge, yes, exploitation's perfect word. Corporate exploitation, misinformation, and just an overall lack of understanding and just this lack of infrastructure amongst the McDonald's Szechuan sauce. I think it's amazing, and a part of me hopes that this was all one giant ploy to get people stop talking about Szechuan sauce for Rick and Morty fans.
Ironically, I'm kind of hoping people talk about it more because there was such a backlash to how McDonald's handled this.
But that's my thing, right? Like people might stop demanding Szechuan sauce because they were promised it and then they didn't get it. Like, well, I'm not doing this again. At least that's how my mindset would work. Maybe it's gonna make people want it more. I don't know. Have the creators said anything about this incredulous event?
Not that I know of. McDonald's released a statement, partly apologizing, but not really. But I don't think the creators have said anything. But to be fair, I've not looked it up. I actually don't follow the Rick and Morty creators on Twitter or on social media.
Mm-mm. Well, I watched the behind the scenes on the episodes, and that's about it.
Okay, I now follow Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland on Twitter as of right now. So
I'm really scared about following people now because I'm afraid like just something's gonna happen. It's gonna be revealed that they did something terrible a few months ago. I'm like, well, no, I can't follow you anymore.
No.
Great.
Oh boy.
Speaking of that, all right. So we're gonna talk about Screen Junkies, guys. If you guys don't want to hear it, you can just skip to the homework or the listener questions. So here's the dealio. For you guys that don't know, so I woke up to I got
to
Friday
narrate the
night.
fun story. You narrate the depressing one.
So on Friday night I get home and I fall asleep at like 8:00. I wake up at 2-ish in the morning and I'm like, and I start scrolling through Twitter because that's just what you do. And or I was on Instagram and I saw someone in their Instagram story and they said, if what I'm hearing about Andy Signore is true, I'm really depressed. I'm like, what's going on? So I went to Twitter and apparently, and that's when I found out, Andy Signore of Screen Junkies on his trailers had been both sexually assaulting and sexually harassing women that have come to work with Screen Junkies. And the people that were involved, the women that were involved, went to the HR department of Define Media, who owned Screen Junkies, and they apparently sat on this for at least 2 months, from what I hear. Now, I may be getting some of my facts wrong, of course, but this is just from what I can recall from what I've read. And it wasn't until these women decided to bravely speak up on Twitter and on social media and expose the hardship that they have gone through that actions have finally been decided. And as of right now, from what I remember, Andy Signore has been suspended, not fired, suspended from Screen Junkies. And I was just, and in that instant, I said to myself, I need some ramen. So I made ramen. But that's beyond the point. My point is, like, I was disgusted, and I couldn't believe. I don't want to be that guy right now because this isn't about who's right or who's wrong. But I have always said that I didn't like Andy Signore, and I've said it on the show, recorded. So I'm just gonna have it out that I didn't call him a sexual predator, but I never liked the fucker. And just to know that someone has not only done this in this kind of gross harassment, but has abused his power, because also apparently Josh Tapia, also known as JTE, famous at working with the Schmoes, and then working with Screen Junkies. He apparently, his girlfriend, I think her name's April, she was there, and she was one of the people that he either assaulted or harassed. And she went, and then Andy threatened to fire Josh, which is just like, don't do my JTE like that, man. Like, that's just, it's crazy, because I've been following these people for so many years, and just to have finally just have it all kind of crumble down like that, it makes me wonder what the fuck else is going on. Sorry, pardon my French. Like, what else is going on? You know what I mean, Trilby? I don't know. What do you think about this, Trilby?
Yeah, it's the reason these ladies came out was because there was the whole Harvey Weinstein news story that the New York Times broke about his conduct over the past 20 to 30 years regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment, and apparently they actually had interviews scheduled with journalists over the next couple of weeks, but decided while this was a common issue, while this was a story, they would stand in solidarity, and they would sell their stories now, which is the reason this story broke in such close proximity. It's with the Screen Junkies guys, I'm not enamored with their content. I like the honest trailers. I was a member of Screen Junkies Plus when they did the first free year, but I only maybe watched for a couple of months. This isn't necessarily important to the story, it's just so our listeners have context. But when I think of Screen Junkies personalities, I think of people like the epic voice trailer guy. I think, what's the name? Nick Mundy. And what's the name of that guy who Hal Rudnick?
Hold on, wait. You said Nick Mundy is in the epic voice guy?
No, epic voice guy, Nick Mundy, as in separate people.
Okay, and Hal Rudnick.
I tend to think of Screen Junkies. When I think of their names, I think of those guys. And Andy Signore is not someone who I particularly know in terms of his content or what his contributions to Screen Junkies are, because I don't really watch movie fights.
Yeah, I think he directs the honest trailers.
Yeah.
He directs them. I think Spencer writes them. This is from last time I remember. And I think Dan Gilbert not Dan Gilbert, Dan something else. Dan edits them. And those three have kind of been with Screen Junkies, kind of helped start it from the beginning. Yeah. Way back when in 2012, I think it was.
So when people say, I always thought there was something creepy about him, or when people... I actually saw this in the comment section, saying he can't have done it because I don't see him as the guy who would do it. I'm incredibly neutral on the guy, as in I don't know much in terms of his content or his on-screen persona or anything like that. So with that out of the way, it's not just the fact that these women are just coming forward, it's also the fact that it is also co-workers. I think the JTE thing is kind of the nail in the coffin. Not saying that these women's accusations are illegitimate as a baseline, it's just it takes on a whole new level in that regard when one of the co-workers is coming out as well. And I can't remember, it was one of the other Screen Junkie guys who was on camera. He put on Twitter saying that I can't believe I didn't see this, but I hear you and I believe you and I stand with you in terms of with the victims of this. It's a separate topic, but I think it's a similar theme where you had internet personalities who have for example, say PewDiePie or JonTron, who have been caught on streams saying incredibly deplorable, racist, terrible shit, and then you get people who will just defend them to no end, regardless of context, regardless of intent, just blind defense. And what you have on the internet, particularly with younger people who are just really starting to get into online culture and online communities, is that you need to have a never meet your heroes moment. You need to have a moment where you discover that people who you look up to are fallible, are flawed, and are capable of terrible things. But when you have an online personality say or do something that's really reprehensible, and you are surrounded by hundreds and thousands of fans who will blindly take their side, you get caught in an echo chamber, and you never have that moment because you never have that self-realization about yourself and also other people who you aspire to be or look up to. And I think that it's a depressing cycle to get into, because then it means you'll just blindly defend, and that can do terrible things to the people who have been victimized, who have been on the receiving end of this harassment.
Yeah, and I do think it's just to add. There have been people. I think one woman that stepped out. I forget her name, but she wanted to do something in costume design, and Andy was apparently a big help into getting her into doing that. Something like, I think from what I remember reading, and he ended up harassing her and being very, very, very just revolting to her. I'm not sure if it's the same girl. I won't get too graphic with the things that he said, but I think it was the same girl that he said he would do certain things to her pictures, and how it turned her away from costume design, which was her dream for so long, which is just awful, which is just terrible, because like to A, have this dream, and then B, have this opportunity to go in and in Hollywood of all things to expand and finally get going, and she was so desperate that she just kind of copped it. She kind of just took it and ran with it, and then it's just revolting, and it's honestly terrible. And there was a certain point, the first thing I read about it, there was, because I'm someone that likes to see every side to a story, every scenario. And so even when I first read the first thing, I'm like, well, what's Andy saying about this? How true is this allegation? Because this stuff happens frequently, and it's not always true. But as you said, like you said, when Josh said things and I read more about it, clearly what's going on here is just revolting and disgusting. It's it's something that we can't. Maybe it's because it's so I don't want to say personal, but it's so like it hits close to home for me. I can't just joke about this. I don't see myself joking about this in 6 months, like the Bill Cosby thing, which I don't know. I really don't know what to think, and I feel bad for those at Screen Junkies who have to work with this guy, who some of which sound surprised that this was going on, by the way, and it's just terrible. Yeah, just terrible.
Well, there's even been a few I can't put names to them, but there have been people in comment sections saying this may explain why there's been so many departures from Screen Junkies recently, particularly women.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, that explains certain things.
There may be a where there's smoke there's fire thing here, but let's not say that is definitely the case. We don't.
Yeah, no, this is pure speculation. Yeah, I mean, we're just piecing things together, and it may not be true or not, but yeah, but it's a depressing scenario, and like you said, that person who wanted to get into costume design and was wanting, and I guess had her love of that career and that medium just tarnished by this guy, and also I believe Andy Signor's married with a kid as well. And there have been many screen-capped conversations and emails surfacing over the past couple of days as to what Andy Signor's been saying, and it's creepy, and it's weird, and it's wrong, and it's not cool. It's awful. It's really not. I mean, not cool is a light way to put it. It's, I mean, in many cases, it's like rape,
not bodacious.
Rape. It's very rapey. It's not great. It's just and what's worse about it is, you're right. He's got a wife and kid, and. And it was crazy because there are people that work at Screen Junkies that are so that are so progressive and so for everything that women do. Like Alicia Malone works with Screen Junkies, and just to think that, that really rubs me the wrong way, and my anger is starting to show because I've gone from disgust to anger. And I really hope, and I think it was Roger Barr who has been a guest and worked with Screen Junkies before, and he said that he was recently invited to come on and do some stuff with Screen Junkies, and he has said that he is not going to do that until Andy has been removed from Screen Junkies and Defy Media and all that. And I know Spencer said he wasn't coming into work, so I'm hopefully, and there have been other people that I think April was behind this as well, of not doing anything with Screen Junkies until Andy's gone, because as long as Andy is, even if he's just suspended, he needs to be gone, and he needs to forever just not be there anymore. And I don't blame everyone else at Screen Junkies. I blame the people I blame the HR department and the people that didn't
who seem to know about this for months and only made a statement when people started going public.
Because just imagine if they had never went public with it. Imagine how long this could have kept going on for. And that's disgusting.
And I think I don't want to play devil's advocate for Defy Media and Screen Junkies here, but I think you could lose Andy Signor, and Screen Junkies, the brand, would probably be just fine. They have guests all the time. They've got a rotating cast and crew. I say cast, like it's on screen talent and punditry and stuff like that. Like they're in LA. There's no shortage of people who can take his place. Like that's not to say that Andy Signor is not talented at his work or anything like that. But it's in this town in LA, you are replaceable, and it's also one aspect that is even more insidious, particularly with Harvey Weinstein as well, who is taking people who look up to him, who know he's a very powerful man in Hollywood. And if they don't do what he says, then they could never work in that town again. It's that position of power that gives that extra grimy aspect to it. And it's only with Weinstein. It's only in recent years when his grip over Hollywood has kind of slipped in recent years, because he is not the producer he was in the late 90s and the 2000s. He's had a string of flops and bombs recently, so it's kind of like, only now can we go public and say these things about this man. And it's been going on for decades, and that's kind of that's what happens when people are not able to come forward because of peer pressure or fear of not being believed. And it's a depressing conversation, but it's something we have to have. It's unpleasant to have. Like I said, we've got time codes in the description, so if you want to, you've probably maybe already skipped this segment and not listening, which is fair, which is fine. If you want to listen to this podcast or watch movies for escapism,
I get it. This isn't something we usually go into here on the show.
And if this was like something happening in the music industry or in
there's a reason we're not talking
watercolor painting, which I'm assuming has its own scandals of similar magnitude.
Okay, Joe. Like you're right. There's a reason we're not talking about Vegas right now. So that's not what we talk about here. But there is a connection here on the show because it is in our space, if you will. Yeah. Also, the Devin Faraci apparently has a similar situation going on. Which that was for me that was a similar like Never Meet Your Heroes moment, because Devin Faraci from Birth Movies Death, formerly Badass Digest, did some incredible work on the website. Some of the best movie writing I've like read in my time as being like a film pundit. And then all this stuff comes out, and then it's awful. And it kind of tarnishes your whole thing. It's similar to, let's say, Johnny Depp, who's who's a on-screen actor whose off-camera reputation seems to have really hurt people's public perception of him, and they might not even go and see his movies. And it's like. Did you hear that they're thinking about replacing him for Fantastic Beasts 2? There's a rumor about that.
I didn't hear that, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, it's just one article I read. I don't even know the validity of it, but apparently I think there's been some discussion there. Which, yes, please, 110% yes, do that.
Back.
No, my God, bring Colin Firth back.
Colin
perfect.
Farrell.
He's perfect for that.
I mean, Colin. Yeah, but have Colin Firth and Colin Farrell in the same movie.
Oh right, I got my Collins mixed up.
So
who'd be perfect though? Colin Firth wouldn't be a bad Dumbledore. Like I see that as young Dumbledore. But Jude Law's a good get. Yeah. All right. Are we done talking about this, Shelby? Can we move on?
Yeah, but I'll just say one more thing. For those of you who have stayed and listened, and props to you. If you do see this sort of behaviour online, like speak out, especially for you guys out there who are listening, because that's not to say that women's having a backlash is invalid or not important, or obviously not, but there may be, it's depressing, but there may be some more legitimacy, quote unquote, to a guy speaking out against terrible behaviour online. If you do see,
which is a shame.
Yeah, it's depressing.
That's the world we're in right now, but you're not wrong in that. People generally, this is a big generalization, if a woman comes out and says that something has happened to her, there's going to be a lot of immediate skepticism, which is terrible. Yeah. But if a guy comes out and says that he saw something as well, there is that extra level of, well, maybe we should listen, which you should listen to begin with, but that's just the world we are in right now.
So if you are a guy and you see this behaviour on Twitter or on social media, or even in public, speak out. If it's in public and it's safe to do so, do it. It's something we're all going to have to bear the responsibility for, and we don't ask for this responsibility. It's just something that will make the world a slightly less depressing place if we do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the addendum I wanted to put onto that. But
and meanwhile, I wonder what Bandit thinks about all this. I'd love to hear what he has to say right now. he'll find some way to spin this that'll make the podcast far more entertaining than it is currently.
Oh gosh, spirited debates can be fun, but I don't know about this topic.
Hey man, that's my thing, right? Like, I love Bandit to death, but he always has a way of making his word known. Okay. That being said, Trilby, we had some homework, didn't we?
Yes. Please bring back the schoolwork.
This week, each one of you has a homework assignment.
Your homework is to listen to some real music, get inspired.
Is this your homework, Larry?
Down with homework?
All right, Trilby, this is the homework portion of the show. Almost lost it. Which we talked about movies we either assigned to see or just saw on our own. So, we saw Rick and Morty, didn't we? We finished the 3rd season of Rick and Morty.
Yes.
Did you?
Yes, we did. Yes,
okay,
it came out on
full
Netflix.
Spoilers.
And it's
full spoilers for season 3 of Rick and Morty. What'd you think?
I think series 3 is just a hair the best series yet. I think all 3 seasons are great. So when people say season 2 or season 1 or 2 is their favorite, there's no wrong answer. This is consistently a great show.
Absolutely.
I think that the finale was a little bit of a letdown, mainly because it was so standalone, and I thought I think
the finale is the worst episode of the season. That being said, I didn't hate the episode. I think it's the weakest.
Yeah, I think worst is a strong word, even if it is accurate. Yeah. It is, I think, the weakest of all of the finales as well. Not just
oh yes, absolutely.
But yeah, because it was so standalone. I thought they were going to be setting up more of like Rick and Morty's tumultuous relationship, especially after Morty's Mind Blowers, or after the Rick Lantis episode, where there would be the fallout from that. And then when the series was very standalone and almost picked up the Beth clone subplot and immediately dropped it. It wasn't a bad episode. I love the action scenes between him and the president, and I thought
I like the layoff invisible soldiers or whatever. And Rick's like, I could see him the whole time. It's like, don't push a Sanchez. Yeah. I love that back and forth him and the president.
Yeah, and then making fun of the shrinking, and Morty standing up to the president like Commander in Queef.
They play what I do appreciate about I love the Minecraft stuff. What I do appreciate about the show is that it never failed to not feel Rick and Morty-ish to me.
Yeah.
Like, the first season was very much, okay, let's establish who these characters are. Oh, let's do some crazy stuff in the world. We're not afraid to go dark with it also. But the second season, it's like, let's explore every conceivable sci-fi concept that we can and just expand the entire multi-dimensional universe. Everything from the episode with the Purge to the invasion of the Body Snatchers to, splitting up time. What else they do in season 2? They did a buttload of stuff in season 2. And then you have the stuff with the Federation, Bird Person's death. I mean, season 2 is just such this... It feels very Empire Strikes Back, if you will.
Show me
especially
what you got.
Ending. They get Swifty, Interdimensional Cable 2. I'm trying to think. There's one. I think it's the Invasion of the Body Snatchers episode. It's one of my favorite episode of that season. I love that. Shut up, you fake person who may not be real, because I don't know if I'm real at the moment. I love this.
It's such a great... I think that is my favorite episode of all of them.
Yeah.
Although that is a very difficult list to make. Like, what would
it's my favorite episode of that season. But at the same time, I love the Vindicators episode of this season. And then with season 3 is like it's like a deconstruction of what the show is, which I think is so perfect. It's tearing down everything that makes Rick and Morty, but that's such a Rick and Morty thing to do.
The Vindicators episode is apparently the creator's least favorite episode.
Which I guess I get. Like the Mad Max one wasn't your least favorite. Okay, sure.
I think the Mad Max one is awesome. I like. I'm not going to put the. I don't think the Vindicators episode would make like a top 3 or top 5 favorite episodes or whatever. But there's still just some incredibly fun moments. Like, I'm just a phantom train conductor.
I love when it's a million ants. He's like, I am now back to 1 million ants.
And it's like,
when Noob,
yes, he was better. God. Really, 1 million times better. All aboard, motherfucker.
Every time Noob just comes in, God damn. That when she hands him the bourbon, he says that I was in genuine tears. That episode made me laugh so much, especially when at the end when Morty's in the train, like the Joker-esque train, and he's like, "I am gonna miss you, Noob Noob. I'm sorry we can steal each other." And Morty's just like, "Motherfucker!" I love that so much. It's so perfect. I think what's the episode after that? I forget the one. Is that the Jerry episode? The world
yeah, it
seriously.
is.
I love that episode. It's a Rick and Jerry adventure, and I think that might be the most important episode of the season, in my opinion. The Rick Lantis is incredible for just the complete subversion of anything endearing or special that comes with Rick and Morty, and they literally just like the way they handle like the Stand By Me thing. And how it's like he sacrificed himself, garbage dump now turning on, and just how everything was for nothing. He literally just tossed that story in the garbage, and then like this political coup from a failed assassination attempt, and just everything about that. Oh, it's so perfect. Yeah, I love that episode. Yeah,
and the guy who has the hostage situation in the factory. Simple Rick.
Yes, his name is Simple Rick. so we shot up in the head and let him relive that moment forever. What is it now? Freedom style wafers. Oh man.
Yeah,
it's so perfect.
It's just a great subversion on like rebellion and how even a rebellion and resentment can be commodified and sold back to consumers. It's like Matrix 3 but good.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like when you watch a movie like it's like American Sniper. It's like a movie about being an American and freedom, and like in reality it's just a corporate mandate where they tick all these boxes and make $600 million from it. It's just like it's Simple Rick. It might be my favorite moment of the entire season, even though the Noob stuff was incredible. Yeah. But again, episode 1 of the 3rd season, which doesn't get enough attention because it came out all the way back in April,
I love it.
Is spectacular.
Mm-hmm. Like everything from the fake backstory, the Szechuan sauce, and just the fake gun shoot me in standoff.
I love every time he would go into somebody new he's like, I'm gonna go take a shit. And he's just, I love that so much. He's a spy, blow him up. I'm gonna go take a shit. I love that so much.
Hey, I'm the chief commander, that would do it.
Hey, sure, good enough.
Hey, this room is only for transporting the Citadel with only buttons and dials. Oh,
well, that's stupid like that. Then. And he just starts doing it. That's amazing.
He gets transported inside of a galactic prison. I'm going to take a shit. The animation in that episode is amazing as well. Like when the Citadel does transport into the the prison, it's an amazing shot, and you see Hammer Morty get killed.
Yeah, and like and that's how you break into a Citadel without a password.
Is it Lawyer Morty as well? Look at him go!
Yes, maybe my favorite character from the season, Lawyer Morty.
He's only in
one. This is a trial, and he's not a real lawyer. We just like him because he keeps us. He's fun. Look at him! Go! Just like, oh hey,
and he whispers in Morty's ear, "No, I don't want to see your Pog collection."
And then when something goes wrong, oh my god, what the hell? And he's like jumps out of the window or whatever. God, Lawyer Morty's amazing. See, I think that's why season 3 is perfect. It's full of just these moments. Because now that they've established what Rick and Morty is, they can just do things like that. It's like, oh, it's classic Rick and Morty. Oh yeah, sure, we'll shoot a guy that apparently wants to get out of the system and then make him a part of the system, just because we can do that. Or we'll do a political coup in 22 minutes. Sure. Like they just did it. Like they did a whole season of House of Cards in like 7 minutes, and it's really cool. Morty's Mind Blowers is perfect. Mm-hmm. The whole enchilada.
Well, you want to experience true level?
Oh. Level.
Some would. We don't know why he decided to kill himself, and some would say he looked like a smudge.
That whole episode, like it's so messed up, and like when that thing's infected him, and he has to like
spit it out.
They have to like spit it out using like the goodwill of his family. And then he's like, well, that's not that everybody in my family is a piece of shit. I love that so much.
Yeah, and Beth chooses Summer over Morty.
Oh god, like just instantly, which is awful. Like that's so terrible. Oh man, but hey, I feel like that's a real thing. I feel like if anybody's put in that scenario, you know who you're gonna choose. easily.
I like the rest and relaxation one as well. I think
where they
mainly because I think Justin Roiland as both versions of Rick and Morty, he carries that episode.
Well, he voices one of the episodes. I think it's the Rick Lantis, where it's literally just him, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But the distinction between Toxic Rick and Normal Rick, and the Toxic Morty was like, I got the tank, Rick. I'm a piece of shit, but I got the tank. And they have that fight in the living room where they just continually one-upping each other, and both of them die. And
I was going to say they both died and end up somehow cloning themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's so funny and clever. I'm not a fan of... I say not a fan. I think once you lose the toxic characters in that episode, the episode is kind of spinning its wheels until the end. But I love like the first 15 minutes of rest and relaxation.
What I do love is the sociopathic nature that a smart Morty is, or I guess they call him a short Rick. I love tall Morty, by the way. Tall Morty. Okay. Fun fact: Rick has a photo of Doofus Rick in his cupboard.
He does.
I don't know if you've ever seen that.
He's got like
fun fact.
a little Titanic as well.
Yeah, I love that. Fun fact. So he. Tall Morty. Yeah, I know. Like a sociopathic nature, like Morty just turns into like American Psycho when he's somehow this 14-year-old kid is like taking over Wall Street and has this really nice penthouse apartment and this super hot ginger girlfriend. Like just this, and how it all just kind of turns on its head. And it's it's essentially a commentation of the status quo and why people need to stick to it, because unless it changes the whole concept of the show. And they can just do an episode like that and then just do the next episode like, okay, now this episode's going to be about creating a new villain, and the next one's going to be a clip show that does, like, I feel like it's essentially deleted scenes, right? Like, I feel like that's what the, like, either deleted scenes or concept that they couldn't fit into an entire episode. Because I mean, even Morty makes that comment. I think he says something like, and all these scene stuff end up on the floor. I'm like, is that a comment on the fact that all this stuff had to get cut out because it couldn't fit into the episode?
Yeah.
And so I do love that, those kind of vignettes. I love when he straight up says, and we're doing this to 7-dimensional cable. I kind of like that. I like that too.
And I didn't name them all. This isn't like a Treehouse of Horror type of deal.
Yeah. Now I call this one the whole enchilada. You gonna finish that chimichanga? Because there's room now.
I can't believe we've gone this discussion without mentioning Pickle Rick.
Yeah, Pickle Rick became like a revolution. You know what I mean? It's not my favorite episode, only because so many other great episodes came out after it. It somehow became like my fourth favorite episode of this season, and that's only because we got Rick Lantis mix up, rest and relaxation, the Jerry episode, and probably my second favorite episode of the season, which was the Beth episode.
Yes, ABCs of Beth.
Yes, which I think is just like, when it ended, I said, that's so like odd and so creepy. Like, and I kind of was expecting the finale to be like very Blade Runner-esque of, okay, now Rick's gonna have to hunt down this clone version of Beth who doesn't realize that she's a clone or whatever. Which I'm like, Looper with Beth, which would have been a cool episode for like Beth having to hunt down herself or something. But I think where they went with the clone thing I thought was pretty okay, because I think it's a nice way of them handling the clone scenario and still sticking to the status quo of the season. Because I think if they were to end on the cliffhanger with the family messed up again, it would seem repetitious to where we left off in season 2.
Yeah. But yeah, with Pickle Rick, you've got this. I'm wondering whether or not it is an ideal episode to introduce people to the show. I've no idea. It might be because it is so standalone and audacious and weird and different.
Yeah.
But then you've got the family counselling subplot, which might go over like a newcomer's head. Like, not to say that they can't understand the themes, but there's so.
It's got everything that makes Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the gory action sequences as well, and even the random guest cameos from Susan Sarandon,
Peter Serafinowicz, and Danny Trejo. Yeah. They all just kind of come in. Yeah, where is this pickle? Where they just essentially do The Rock, but with Pickle Rick. Yeah. They like Die Hard meets The Rock.
And there's just so like it's just this is like a living, breathing world that is carrying on without Rick and Morty, because he goes into this toilet, comes out, and he's in this government building. Whose toilet is this?
Who the fuck's toilet is this? I love that so much. The deconstruction at the end of what makes Rick was really cool. I know a lot of people didn't like that, because I felt like the show lost a lot of its comedy. But I feel like the show still has a lot of funny moments. But it's all character based. It's not a lot of it's not the randomness that makes Rick and Morty. I've used that phrase a lot, but that's the best way to describe it. It's more, a lot of it's more character development wise. Like when Rick just kills like a whole sea of rats, like, God damn, I love myself. That line kills me every time.
I love the ABCs of Beth as well. The Fruity Land concept.
Yeah. And how Rick created a sociopathic daughter, apparently.
It's one of the best lines as well. Like, get out of the way of your sociopath. And how they know exactly what's happened in Fruity Land, and they have to have it explained to them again. Like they know that Tommy has been breeding with these people and then eating the babies. And
crazy.
They know all of this stuff, but they have to have it retold to them. So I guess you're wondering how I survived. Oh no, we already know. We got it. And how it also it's great how Rick loses his arm, instantly has a new one, and then in the next scene when he's playing guitar, he has his normal arm back. It's just one of those don't think about it, don't care, whatever works for the story and the characters at that moment, I guess. I think it's also just great to see more of Beth, because I think she's becoming one of the more interesting characters.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of I want to see maybe a bit less of Jerry, unless they give him something very different or new to do. I think Jerry may have reached his limit in terms of the character.
I thought they had a very nice closure of the Jerry story in his episode with Rick, where they just broke each other down, like, you act like prey, but you're a predator feasting on people's pity or whatever, which is the reason I hate Jerry, by the way, the reason I've always hated Jerry, and the fact that they just kind of, oh my god, Star Wars tickets go on sale tomorrow. Everybody be ready. I just got that. Sorry, I just got the post. Anyways, sorry. Where was I? And how they broke down why I hate Jerry and so why everybody else should hate Jerry. And then when Rick goes, we'll call him Simple. When Rick goes mentally challenged.
I want to see more of Doofus Rick.
I want cookies and a 90-minute cut of Avatar.
And how he even pretends to go and hit Rick, just to try and assert his authority. He's a douchebag. Hate him.
Yeah, you punk bitch, you little punk bitch.
And how that alien who's trying to kill Rick, he's like, no, you're just fighting back in this way so you can say you fought back.
Yeah, and I love it's not even worth me killing you, so I'm not going to. So I'm not even gonna put the effort in. That was Clancy Brown, I believe.
I love Clancy Brown.
That alien. Yeah, his voice stands out like a deep sore thumb.
I was thinking how Clancy Brown is he's becoming so prominent in shows. Like he's the Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the new version, and he's awesome.
That's cool.
He's awesome.
I think I know him as Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob.
Oh my god, that is him.
Yeah, that is him. Yeah. He's in Daredevil season 2. He's in a lot of stuff. He just has a naturally recognizable voice, and when you pick it up, he's in Avatar: The Last Airbender as Long Fang. If anyone knows who that is. Okay. You done with Rick and Morty talk? Should we close it out?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was fun to end the series on Mr. Poopy Butthole again.
Oh, yes. I might even have a big bushy beard and my grandkids.
I went back to college and got my GED. What did you do?
Hope you guys didn't just, fuck around, because we're going to be gone for another 5 years. I love that.
Really
come back in a super long time.
Because at the end of Series 2, he predicted almost down to the day when it would be coming back.
In a year and a half or longer.
I think it was 2 days off.
But, yeah, that's crazy, right? Yeah.
But yeah, all right. I think we've talked about all the episodes as well, though. But yeah, it was. Do you have?
Yeah, we broke down.
Do you have a favorite
episode? Okay. in terms of, like, overall episode, I love the Vindicators. In terms of, I think, what's the most important episode, I think the ABCs of Beth was great. But my favorite moment from the entire season might still be when the opening to Pickle Rick. It's so majestic and beautiful. It's like, I turn myself into a pickle, Morty, a Pickle Rick, and it's such a, it's just so perfect. I don't know what makes it so special, but I love that moment so much. Are you gonna, like, turn invisible? You're gonna fart at me or something? Just turn it over, Morty.
Yeah. I think my favourite episode is either Rick Shank Redemption. I think the series started incredibly strong.
Oh yeah, that's like a 10 out of 10 episode. But they're like at least there are like 3 10 out of 10 episodes in this season, in my opinion. Yeah. Which is unheard of for a show.
So either that one or Pickle Rick. It's one of those two is my favourite. And favourite moment, God, I think Perfectly Level from Morty's Mind Blow is really funny.
God, that's amazing. He like goes crazy.
True Level, and then Morty stands
True
on
Level.
it, and the animation's great on how he gradually changes.
What I love is, like,
life is a lie.
Yeah, I love that. How, like, dude, the way it's drawn, it doesn't look any different, but Morty's just standing there, and he's just like. And then he goes back to normal ground and he just kind of breaks down. Like, it's like, oh, it's amazing. It's great.
And there's also just the toxic Rick and Rick fight in Rest and Relaxation. When he kicks Rick in the balls, he falls over and then that belt gun comes out. He's like, kill him. That is my groin's user. You know what? Not my call. He just goes back in the belt.
Well, I think one of my favorite moments in Rick and Morty, like, ever, which is "What is my purpose? What is my purpose? You pass butter." He looks at his hands, just like, "Oh my god!" And it's I love that. See, I love that's my favorite. Not only my favorite Rick and Morty moment ever. What is my purpose?
You pass butter. Oh my god.
Oh my god. He's like resentful when he passes it the butter. He like just shoves it in his face. I love it. I love that.
Yeah, the series is brilliant, and I think series 3 is probably the best of all 3 of them, but all of them are terrific. I don't think there's a single bad or like average episode. They're all at least good, like worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think they're all at least like a 7 out of 10. I think the finale is one of the weaker episodes of the entire series.
Yeah.
The season 3 finale, but that's only because, you know, each episode ranges from like 8 to 10 out of 10 for me. So I think for an episode to be like maybe a 6.5, it's like, you know, that's just average. That's an average TV show episode for me, you know.
Hey, I'm fly fishing Rick.
Fly fishing. Here's just dumb hat back, Jerry. All right. Yeah. Should we jump into Gerald's Game?
Yeah, let's do it. That's another thing I've been able to watch on Netflix this past week.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce this one? Because my throat still hurt.
Yeah, sure. Gerald's Game is an adaptation of the Stephen King book of the same name, which was often thought to be unfilmable. And it comes from Mike Flanagan, who you may know as the director of the...
Woo! Let's get him on the show!
I'll tweet at him. Ouija, Origin of Evil, Before I Wake, Hush, Oculus. He's basically a really great, talented, up-and-coming horror director. If you've not seen Hush, Hush is only available in the UK through Netflix, so he clearly has a good relationship with the platform. And he also did Oculus, which is a really great original modern horror film with Karen Gillan and Brendan Thwaites. Really great, surreal.
Oculus really took me by surprise, but Hush blew me away. I really liked his Ouija sequel as well.
I've still not seen the Ouija sequel, which is depressing.
I think it's more Hollywood than its other films are, but I think it's still a very good film.
I feel bad as a human being because the first Ouija is a terrible, horrible movie, yet I still have seen that, but I've not seen the sequel. So I'm terrible.
I think you should give it a shot. I think you'll appreciate it.
I've heard nothing but good.
I can't find my pencil. Oh, I lost my pencil, Trilby. I'm sad.
If you want, I'll keep on introducing the film, and I'll give you time to find it if you want. But Gerald's Game was thought to be unfilmable because it takes place predominantly in one room, and it actually takes place in the mind of the main character, here played by Carla Gugino, who has been handcuffed to a bed as part of a sex game with her husband, who has a heart attack on top of her, and she she is handcuffed to this bed, unable to escape, and there's a hungry dog that comes in because they left the front door open, and she has to try and escape from the handcuffs or die. All the while, there's potentially the embodiment of death in the room as well, because it's Stephen King. There's got to be some sort of a surreal element to the plot, and this film's really good.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And if you guys follow me on Snapchat, you guys will know, like, I oftentimes when I'm watching a movie, if it's like on Netflix, I'll post my mental progression throughout the film, and it starts off, I'm like, oh yeah, it's getting started, it's a pretty cool setup, I like, oh, husband passed, oh no, it's cool, and then like the dog shows up, and I was like, oh my god, and we'll go non-spoilers for a bit, and you're right, there's like, the movie takes this turn about like 45 minutes in, and it becomes something else. Yeah. And it's no longer just like a Twilight Zone episode where someone has to find out a way to get off the bed. It's now a fight for her mental survival.
Yeah, it becomes more existential.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's not... And what keeps it from being one of the best, like the best film of the year for me, because it's like a 9 out of 10 right now, what keeps it from being the 10 for me is like, much like 10 Cloverfield Lane, the last like 10 minutes, I think, really pulls it back, which is a shame because everything leading up to that is amazing.
Yeah, the change of pace is really it's a bit,
and it's not even the fact that certain things do happen, it's what's revealed about what was actually going on. I thought took away from what made the film so what made the film so special. Carla Gugino, who I think you probably know, everyone probably knows her best as, I don't know, old Silk Spectra from Watchmen. That's why I mainly knew
her as she's the wife from San Andreas.
Yeah, which is where I've seen her in other things, but I can't really think of her as that. And at first I'm like, oh, Stuart Little's mom, but that's Gina Davis. So I get her and Gina Davis confused apparently.
Because she's the mother in San Andreas, which means she's
the mom in Spy Kids. Yeah, that's why I know her from. She's the mom in Spy Kids.
She's also she is Dwayne Johnson's wife and Alexander Daddario's mother. So that makes a hell of a lot of sense in terms of that perfect gene pool.
Yeah, that's a beautiful family, man. That's a gorgeous family. No one, like, if I would have relations with every single person in that family, my God, even The Rock, there's just a hunk of a man. Any hoosers.
Well, speaking of hunk of a man, Bruce Greenwood has a 6-pack.
Oh my God! Okay, yeah, Bruce Greenwood's in this. You guys probably know as Captain Pike from the Star Trek films, and he also voiced Batman in Batman Under the Red Hood. So when I saw him, I was like, "Hey, it's Bruce Greenwood," and I thought he was. And I won't give away too much, but he's in it more than you think he's going to be, and it's essentially. I don't know if I should. I don't want to give away the details of the plot. The setup doesn't give you a lot. A woman has to have a mental breakdown after her husband dies. During a sex act in which she's chained up to a bed. So, like, that's all you get. That's the first 10 minutes or so. But it's how Mike Flanagan, similar to Dan Trachtenberg for 10 Cloverfield Lane, how he's able to take one room and make it just terrifying. Yeah. And what I like is that typically when I watch a horror movie or I'm watching a movie, I'm thinking, don't do that, that's stupid. And the character thinks that. She's like, I'm not going to do that, that's stupid, that's a bad idea. Maybe I should try doing it like this, maybe I should try doing it like this. And Mike Flanagan has this one flaw in his filmmaking where he'll set up everything 10 minutes into the film and pay it off throughout the rest of the film. And I've seen enough of his work now to where I can see it right away. I'm like, oh, that's a cup of water. That's important. That's a key. That's important. Close over the dog. That's important. Steak. That's important.
It's not as egregious in this because it is stuff that we only know what Jessie, who's the lady who's handcuffed to the bed, we only know what she knows, and that information does come into play later. And also, it's kind of, if you've read Stephen King's work, I've not read Gerald's Game, but I've read some of his similarly paced novels, such as
Misery.
Misery. That attention to detail is a key factor to his work. So I feel like it's more just representing the source material. I get it was kind of partly my issue with Hush, where it was like, oh, she's clearly going to use this. Oh, this has obviously been put down in this location.
I guess,
but I think it's. Actually
I guess it's more of the how. Yeah. It's more of the how that is what make, like, you see a key on the floor, you're like, how's she gonna get that key? Well, it's how we discover that she figures out how to get the key, which is that makes the film so great. We find out a lot about this character through her mental breakdown, through essentially her, without giving too much, through essentially talking herself through the situation, and you're right, and there is, like you said, there is this embodiment of death, that is essentially. Okay, so here's how this is gonna work, people. To the uninitiated, there has been a bit of an audio cut. There's been a half-hour gap, and I have somewhere to be in about 25 minutes. So I'm gonna force Trilby to do a lightning round so we can get to your listener questions. Trilby, tell you what, I'll give you 90 seconds to talk about Curse of Chucky and Blade Runner each, because I haven't seen Blade Runner yet. So I'll give you 90 seconds for each. I'll compromise. And I will give you your start. You will start with either one right now.
Give me the 30-second warning. Cult of Chucky is, I think it's the 6th or 7th film in the Child's Play franchise, and it's recently gone straight to video. The Curse of Chucky came out a couple of years ago, and this is basically a sequel to that. It's got it's similar in tone, similar in production values, and it also stars Fiona Dourif, who is Brad Dourif's daughter, and she's really good in these films. I actually think Curse and Cult of Chucky are the best films in the Child's Play franchise, because the films have never been particularly scary, and there has always been a bit of a slightly unintentional comedic element to it, and these two films have actually leaned into that and produced some legitimately funny scenes. There's a terrific scene where Chucky is wandering down the corridor with a knife to kill somebody and then stumbles across this mental patient, and the mental patient's just as crazy as he is, and he's like, I'm going to come right back and deal with you once I've killed this person. The winking laughs and the jokes are really good. There's some fun kills.
30 seconds.
It's clearly low budget, but it's made with heart. Absolutely. And Brad Dourif voicing Chucky is the glue holding this franchise together. When you get characters like Jason, Freddy, and Michael, where they could potentially be performed by other actors once the series moves on, I can't imagine anyone other than Brad Dourif voicing Chucky. It's not as good as Curse, but the open-ended nature of this film, Cult of Chucky, means I just want to see more sequels. I want to see where this story goes, and I really hope this succeeds. It's straight to video. Check it out.
All right, wonderful. Now we're going to jump into Blade Runner. Ready and go.
No spoilers for Blade Runner 2049, but I thought it was actually better than the original. Although, bear in mind, we also talked about it last week, I think Blade Runner, the original, was a pretty good film. I actually think this improves on it in every single way, mainly because it feels like there's a lot more in its mind, and there's characters, and there's actually a mystery. There's a compelling mystery to be unravelled in Blade Runner 2049. The production values are incredibly good. The CGI and the practical effects are flawlessly implemented together. Ryan Gosling is amazing in this role. There's even some great supporting work done by Dave Bautista, Robin Wright, Ana de Armas, and others who are just... The cast is almost uniformly terrific, except for Jared Leto, who is good, but I feel really sorry for the set designer because of the scenery that he was chewing. I think that the evolution of the story of the world is really well done. Oh yeah, but the evolution of the story is really smartly implemented. I think it may be about 10 minutes too long, but even though it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, I didn't really feel the length that much. It's methodically paced and it's slowly paced, and there's very little action, but I was engaged the whole way through because there is a mystery, because the lead character actually does have some sort of arc, as opposed to Deckard in the original, who didn't really have that much of an arc or growth. There's a few elements carried over from the first film which I actually think drag it down. If this was a standalone story that didn't reference the original at all, I think it may be better. It's kind of restrained by the original, but I can't really talk about spoilers. The stakes are a bit iffy, but once again, it's all spoilers. Probably talk about it more next week, but I really liked Blade Runner 2049.
Wonderful, Trilby. I give you an extra few seconds to interrupt you with the goddamn. All right, thank you, Trilby.
No, thank you.
Wonderful. I apologize for that quick change of pace of the podcast, people.
That's cool, it happened.
There was some technical difficulties that we had to handle, and I have somewhere I need to be. That being said, let's jump into the listener questions. We'll do a couple of those.
Oh, also in Blade Runner 2049, there's an amazing love scene. It's great.
Great.
I'll leave it at that.
Great.
You've got that to look forward to.
Going to see it in the IMAX.
IMAX love. Right in the eyes.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
We're doing you.
All right, guys. This is the listener questions portion of the show. Good start by answer listener questions on the Facebook page, Morty. All right. So this is the question from like 2 hours ago. Ned Erdy on Facebook asked, "Which supervillain duo will be the best president?" And they put a picture of Megatron and Starscream on here, which is just perfect because that's a great answer. Yeah. I'm gonna go Joker.
Megatron Starscream
20 Quinn, by the way.
It's Megatron Starscream 2052.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's amazing.
See, these questions a few months ago probably would have been fun, but now there is an actual supervillain as the president. So I don't know if it's fun to talk about.
It's quite timely in that sense.
But I'm actually not sure. I'm trying to think of like some of the more obvious ones. Like maybe there's a Bond villain and a henchman.
I mean, Joker,
like,
Joker and Harley Quinn is an easy one. You know, I think that's
Goldfinger and Jaws.
Is Jaws and Goldfinger?
I don't know. I was just thinking, what's the quintessential Bond henchman?
Yeah, that's true. What's his face? Oddjob from Goldfinger. Isn't he? Oddjob's in Goldfinger. Isn't he the one with the hat?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he's. I forget which ones are in which film, but
I haven't seen those movies in a few years. But I mean, I think that's a fantastic question.
There's Syndrome from Pixar's The Incredibles.
He might as well be just wiping all the supers. We're gonna build a wall around the superheroes. Speaking of which, if you guys appreciate good movie music, The Incredibles soundtrack is one of the best movie scores out there. I'm not just talking about the main theme, but there's a track called Kronos Revealed, I think that's what it's titled. And it's when Mr. Incredible finds out that Syndrome has killed all these supervillains, and the music is just incredible. I think everybody look up that track if you're a fan of movie music. If you're a fan of Michael Giacchino, good Michael Giacchino, you'll understand why I'm always so disappointed with him.
And the 100-mile dash.
Oh yes, well, that whole scene.
Yeah, the orchestra gets pushed to its limits in that sequence.
Well, him and John
terrific.
Williams both really make those violins work for it, man. They go to
And it's when he goes on the water and it's like
yes. Oh yes, faster. Yes. Okay. Do you have a question?
Yes. I think I'll condense the question slightly, but Liam Stobie asks, do you think that studio executives involved with superhero movies are far too focused on adapting big popular stories? Case in point, DC revealing Flashpoint as their first Flash movie, and Fox revealing their second attempt at a Dark Phoenix movie.
Sorry for the slip smack, people. I might cut that out. I can't say for sure, but I mean, there's evidence there, of course. But I do think that Zack Snyder specifically was very keen on adapting comic book storylines. You know, like he wanted to do Dark Knight Returns, and he essentially just, like, Man of Steel is just Superman. I think it's Rebirth, the Comic-Con is called. He did Death of Superman. But at the same time, I think studios understand that these are big, important stories in the comic book world. So potentially, you know, that might actually be the case. Considering things like Old Man Logan, Civil War, Age of Ultron, even going back to... But at the same time, I think they're going to that for inspiration, not because of the fans, but because it's it's easiest to adapt. Like, even going back to X-Men 2, he just did, you know, I think the God Loves, Man Kills, I think that's what the X-Men storyline's called. They did the Mutant Cure storyline and the Phoenix Saga in Last Stand. Even going back to the 90s cartoon, they did the Phoenix Saga in Days of Future Past. So they've always adapted these famous storylines. I think it's just because it's easiest to do. To come up with a whole new storyline for a comic book just seems like a waste.
Yeah, and it's also the more cynical aspect is that it's more about the movie hype cycle.
Yeah.
It's if they say that they're adapting this particular story, then immediately people are on board with what they're going to be doing. You can get lots of early buzz and traction, and lots of news outlets reporting on what the story is, getting people up to speed and getting them more engaged with the movie before they even sat down to watch it. Because if you've invested that much time and energy into already knowing what the story is, then you're probably more likely or more comfortable buying a ticket for it. And it's also, when you've got comic book movies, you're not... it's an interesting... difference when you're adapting the Hunger Games books, you are adapting those 3 books. That is the story. Whereas with these comic book adaptations, you're adapting these characters, and you can pick and choose which stories or which elements you want. There's like 80 years of Captain America history. No, sorry, I've got my math wrong. 60, 70 years of Captain America history, but you're not doing it chronologically. You're picking and choosing. Yeah. Whereas with like the Hunger Games, or with maybe to another extent James Bond, you are picking and choosing. There are the stories set in stone there, or you can go entirely original. Yeah. But that initial interest in the storyline and that initial familiarity helps to get the movie. It's a lot easier to pitch the movie to executives and to get it greenlit.
I mean, yeah, I mean, of course. Also, I think there's a bit of the filmmakers are just fans themselves. You know, like Zack Snyder is a big fan, but also the Russo brothers. They're a fan of the Ed Brubaker storyline, hence why Ed Brubaker's in The Winter Soldier. So, of course, they're going to adapt the Winter Soldier storyline. Civil War, there's just these certain... Especially when you've been going for this long, there are certain marks I think comic fans expect you to tick at a certain point. Like, oh, this is Hugh Jackman's last film? Of course he's going to do Old Man Logan. And before we even knew that it was going to be called Logan, and back when I thought it was going to be called Weapon X, which would have been a great title. But I just think people just kind of expect you to do comic book storylines at that point. And you're right. When you have 80 years of comic books, there's no excuse for the story not to make sense or be bad. And I think I said that when BVS came out. Like, the moment the cut to cards, I said, you had, like, 80 years of comics. How do you mess that up? Like, how is that? Why was that so hard for you? I think that,
it's one reason I think Marvel have been doing so well with their characters, is that they're able to look at the original run of Civil War and say, okay, it was an iconic story and it had great moments, but it wasn't entirely well received. What can we do to improve that story? Yeah. What can we do to make it fit into our universe? How can we reflect?
Instead of Goliath, let's make it War Machine as the person that gets hurt and forces people to switch sides. You know,
Whereas with like DC and Warner Brothers, they're like Death of Superman and Dark Knight Rises. Just put it in there. Yeah. It's iconic. Put it in there without much forethought.
Well, I think that, and he brought up the kind of basis of this comment. The Flashpoint storyline is a prime example of DC not really knowing what they're doing, and I think it's a shame because the Flashpoint, I think, is such a cool idea, a cool story point that, especially if Aquaman is who I think Aquaman's going to be in this universe, and Wonder Woman's a cool idea. I think they're going to have. I think if you can establish them, all have this great team dynamic, and then in like maybe 10 years or so after the DCEU has been established, to then say we're going to do Flashpoint, and now Aquaman and Wonder Woman are going to have to fight each other, and everything's and that's when things go dark. That's, to me. See, they just done it in reverse. Because I'm just describing the current universe. Like, that doesn't... never mind. Whatever.
Yeah. Right. But, I think that covers the question, though. Have we got another one for us?
I think we should close it off here. It's 3:45.
Okay.
Okay.
That is fair, and you've got somewhere to be.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. Sorry we didn't get some more of your questions. So that one person that asked where the last podcast was, it's half edited on my computer. I might put out 2 in 1 week now that I have free time. Trouble, where people find you?
You can find me on my website.
Were you drinking a cup of tea? I heard that shuffling on your end.
I don't even know what that was. You can follow me on my website at www.trubby.com. You can go on my Twitter at TrubbyReviews. That's TRILBEE. You can listen to my own podcast, the Film Brits Podcast, and support it via Patreon. And you can also find my YouTube channel, Mr. Tyler's Reviews or Trubby Reviews. And Trey, what about you? What about yourself? Where can we find you online when you're not doing music and rushing away and having computer issues?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Podcast Media. 1,000 subscribers, thank you guys so much. I kind of write for Glide Magazine, which is really fun. Equation's almost done. I say that every week, but it is. I'm currently storyboarding my next project. But besides that, I feel like I'm like on the Collider show now, and we have another show coming up in like 10 minutes. We have to get everybody off the set. I don't know.
Come on, Trey, we gotta go and do Heroes. Jedi Council.
Jedi Council's coming up next. We gotta move. Tomorrow. We gotta end movie talk. Okay, so yeah. Besides that, yeah. So come back next week when we do whatever's we're going to do. Probably something. I want something Hollywood related soon. Catch you all later. Our Movie Maniacs.